This is the MTN 530 News.
Tonight on the MTN 530 News, grounded. Airlines around the nation having trouble taking to the air due to a lack of pilots. Find out how this could impact your travel plans. Plus, as a final decision nears, a packed house fills the state capitol to weigh in on Montana's 2 new congressional districts. We'll take you there. And questions surround Montana's Attorney General tonight after he reportedly dispatched a Montana Highway Patrol trooper to a Helena hospital to intimidate healthcare providers. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, St. Vincent Healthcare is clapping back after a Colstrip man was denied care for emergency surgery. In fact, the family says he was denied care due to no room or short staffing at a handful of major Montana hospitals and was ultimately rushed out of state for life-saving care. Well, tonight, Q2's Andrea Lutz gets an inside glimpse at St. V's emergency room with hospital officials saying they can't turn patients away.
More often than not, the 25 beds that are housed here at the emergency department at St. Vincent are filled. And a lot of that has to do, of course, with a rise in COVID-19 cases. That being said, officials here say that if somebody comes to their emergency room needing critical care, they have an ethical and legal duty to get them help.
Even at a time when COVID is stretching hospital resources thin, Dr. Rich Lammers with St. Vincent says specializing in emergency care is at the very heart of what his staff does.
We cannot say, you know what, we're too busy, you just need to go elsewhere.
But that's exactly what Jeanelle Loining from Colstrip says happened to her family just last week.
No, we can't take you. We don't have the staffing. We're diverting patients. Wait time was a minimum of 4 hours.
She says her husband, Sean, was denied emergency care due to a perforated bowel. And after frantically trying to find a place to take him, he landed at a hospital in Cody.
When he first got there, they couldn't start surgery right away because his blood pressure tanked to the point that they were saving his life at that point.
Dr. Lammers says he can't speak specifically to Sean's situation. And even though COVID has exacerbated everything, ultimately, he was found a bed.
There's systems in place so that when you're making those phone calls, that if they can't be taken to one hospital, it's the next hospital or the next hospital. And thankfully, that system worked for that patient. Thankfully, Cody was able to care for that patient.
We know COVID is placing a heavy burden on the shoulders of our healthcare workers.
I think overall, we're handling this well, and I think we're handling it as expected.
Now Sean is back home and healing after getting the care he needs.
You can't help but think of the ones that maybe didn't get the help.
But Lammers says, bottom line, patients won't be turned away.
The right thing to do when those patients show up to our emergency department is to see, evaluate, stabilize, and care for those patients.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Yellowstone County health officials say the county is now on track to have the highest number of COVID cases since the pandemic began. Now, Montana announced more than 1,300 new cases today. Yellowstone County accounts for 180 of those, along with 3 more deaths. Well, tonight there are more than 11,000 active cases across the state. Nearly 2,600 of those are here in Yellowstone County. So far, more than 2,200 Montanans have died from the virus, and 454 patients remain hospitalized tonight. And the commission that will draw Montana's 2 new congressional districts is getting close to a final decision and got an earful today on what it should do. Well, scores of people appeared before the 5-member panel at the Capitol to weigh in on 9 proposed maps. Now, the commission is looking at 4 maps proposed by its 2 Republican members and 5 maps proposed by 2 Democratic members. Republicans organized a rally outside the Capitol and then packed the room with people who testified in favor of the GOP maps, most of which split the state between East and West. But the commission also heard comment via Zoom, and most of those people supported the Democratic maps. They said the GOP maps unfairly split Bozeman and create non-competitive districts that favor Republicans. The commission will choose a tentative final map on Thursday. Billings voters have a big decision ahead on the public safety mill levy, with ballots due in the elections office by November 2nd. Q2's Russ Riesinger has been taking a closer look at how that $7.1 million will be spent and why city officials say it's so important. Tonight, he talks to the fire chief.
Since 2010, our call volume has increased by 76%.
That's just one of the changes that Billings Fire Chief Pepper Valdez has seen in his 20-plus years on the job. More calls for fires, wrecks, rescues, and other emergencies. But the city's increase in violent crime is also impacting the fire department.
Most violent calls come with a medical component to it. So then that's why we go with PD oftentimes. So that's gone up. It's weird. The lack of respect for authority has gone down.
If the public safety mill levies approved, the fire department would receive $1.5 million. It would add a permanent fire marshal and logistics officer, with the biggest chunk, though, around $1 million, used to establish medical response teams. These two-person teams with light vehicles would roll out to non-life-threatening incidents instead of the big engines, eventually saving money.
It saves the wear and tear. Maintenance costs go down, fuel usage goes down.
The chief says money from the levy will also help address the problem of super users, people on the streets who police and fire are called out to respond to again and again.
We have the ability to pair our resources, our paramedics, with a mental health professional. And get them into more definitive care without the use of the big fire engines, a police car, and so forth. We also have the capabilities of being able to do community paramedicine. So that's a team that can go into these individuals' homes, make sure that they're taking the proper medications, make sure they're doing all their follow-ups with their doctors, and so forth. That cuts down on costs to us taxpayers significantly.
And while the levy will cost taxpayers now, the chief believes there will be a payoff in the future.
The city of Billings and the citizens here deserve the best. And we feel that we can increase that quality of life with this levy ask.
In Billings, I'm Russ Riesinger reporting for MTN News.
It was a gray, cool day today, and the temperatures reflected at 30 degrees colder right now in Billings than it was at the same time yesterday. You can see 25 degrees colder in Miles City, and all of that pretty much the same all the way from Worland, Cody over toward Sheridan. But at the same time, the amount of humidity is actually increasing in the atmosphere. That's going to slow the cool down a little bit overnight, but with some clearing, temperatures will drop down to freezing or colder, 25 to 35 first thing in the morning. And as that moisture increases, the chance of getting some frost and some foggy conditions first thing tomorrow will greatly increase, and that could affect your morning commute. Beyond that, we've got a lot more weather to talk about. The complete forecast details are coming up in just a few minutes.
A nationwide pilot shortage is affecting scheduling and the number of flights. And here at the Billings Logan International Airport, things are no different. Canceled flights, delays, and traveler frustration. You've seen it in airports all across the country, and much of it stems from a nationwide pilot shortage.
There were some airlines that were very aggressive in terms of reducing their staff during the pandemic and offered incentives, early retirement package and stuff, and they were very successful at getting people to leave their ranks so they could reduce their payroll costs while they weren't making any revenue during the pandemic. Subsequently, now they got to play catch up the other way.
Flights began being cut as soon as summer was over, but get ready, because starting in November, it could get even worse.
I mean, I think every airport in the States has some impact right now on that.
Kevin Plone, Billings' Director of Aviation and Transit, says while travelers have begun to return to the skies, pilots have not. United Airlines typically offers 5 to 6 flights a day out of Billings during the summer months, but the airline's general manager at the Billings Airport says that's been cut to just 3, and the busy holiday travel season is just around the corner.
We get into the holiday season, we're floating some things out there for Thanksgiving, but we'll probably stay pretty close to that number, and we'll probably stay in that ballpark right up till Christmas. If we see strong bookings in going into the holiday season, they'll probably add some flights in.
So fair warning, if you need plane tickets, especially around the holidays, buy sooner rather than later. In Billings, Brandon Warren, MTN News.
After a weekend struck by tragedy, the Lewistown Eagles football team and the surrounding community are doing their best to deal with the loss of one of their own. MTN's Dylan Foreman has more.
This past Sunday night, Fergus High School senior Dylan Morris passed away after a tragic car accident. Morris was a senior standout for the Eagles both on the wrestling mat and on the football field. First-year head coach for the Eagles, Derek Lear, posted this touching message on Facebook. "Love you and rest easy, Big Hoss. Look over us up there. I hope you know how proud I was to be a part of your journey. You won the day until the end. RIP, number 71. As the news has disseminated its way through the Montana football community, Lewistown and the Fergus High School football team have seen an outpouring of love and recognition through the postings of number 71 on social media, which was the number Morris was wearing on the football team.
You know, we're lucky to have everybody sitting there, you know, and Lewistown's not able to have that luxury moving forward, and they never will be able to have that same team in the locker room again as it was on Friday night when they beat Billings Central.
The number 71 decal will also be on the helmets of many of the single A teams throughout the conference, including Havre and Laurel.
I think the best way that we can honor him is definitely with the decal. But then just to play the game as hard as we possibly can, just like I know that the Dylan always did.
As we move forward within our program, we just make it consistently aware of, hey man, enjoy each and every time you are able to hang out with your friends. High school is a short little snip of time in your guys' life, and we want it to be awesome, outstanding years, but we know that your best years are in front of you.
If you'd like to donate to the funeral expenses, the Morris family has asked that you donate to the Creel Funeral Home. For more updates, you can follow the Fergus High Football Facebook page. In Great Falls, I'm Dylan Foreman, MTN Sports.
Still ahead on your 5:30 news, the full story about Montana's Attorney General being questioned after allegations a patient is mistreated at a Helena hospital. Keep it here.